that basic, okay? So a little bit of background about the pattern and where the name came from. Rich and I have spent some time on the water together, both, you know, on the rivers and out on the Sound where I guide. And Rich and I had for years been trying to get him out on the Sound to get his first false out. And about 4 years ago in the fall, September, and they were just everywhere. But the problem, they had to see her fly. And Rich is throwing this fly out there. I wasn't paying much attention because we were both catching fish. But after a while, I just kind of bummed the fly. I said, hey, what are you actually using? I'm just curious because, you know, the fish were seeing it. So it was rain bait. They were all about this big, you know, tan. And he was throwing this chartreuse version of what I'm going to tie. He was throwing this guy right here. I don't want to get washed out in the light. This guy, the silly bunny. And he calls it the silly bunny because it's so easy to tie and so effective. It's silly. You'd think something this effective would be more complicated to tie. So that's where the name of it comes from, the silly bunny. So if you notice from the materials list that was sent out with the email invite, there's not a lot going on. There's certainly room for creativity and substitution of materials if you want. But let's start. Yeah, that light is washing things out a little bit too much for my taste. Okay, let's get a hook in the vise. I know Rich listed a very specific make and model of hook. This is a Gammy. It's a GB10S. It's one of their Stinger hook series. I get asked a lot, boy, doesn't that hook bend out on big fish? And no. No, it doesn't. Not if you drag a set correctly. So if it's good enough for false albacore, it's good enough for me. Okay, so you can make this any color you want to, any color. And for the purposes of demonstration tonight, I'm going to be doing it in the chartreuse color because it's really easy to see. And that's why I wore this dark background, unless of course my SWE logo is back here and you all lose it. So I think we want to start our thread. We want to go up and back a couple times with spiral wraps just to get a semblance of a base of thread. Now, one thing that was not in the materials list that I know Rich does with this fly, and he's not the first to do it, is he foul proofs it with a piece of heavy mono. If you have any heavy mono, you can grab it now. If you don't, I want you to watch what I do. We're going to foul proof the tail. I use an awful lot of rabbit, and it's great. It's very durable, has a lot of good movement, but it can foul if it's not tied in correctly. So I have this 150-yard roll of 50-pound test mono. I cut a piece off of it. There's, of course, I don't want to dull them. And if you are so inclined, you can take a pair of pliers and flatten the tip of that out if you want to. I haven't really felt the need to do that. What we're going to do is take that mono, and right behind the eye, we're going to have it on the underside. We're going to do some loose gathering wraps, and then tighten as we go forward. And then wrap back to the bend of the hook. It's a good idea right here if you want to add a little glue or contact cement of some sort. I'm just putting a little hard as nails on there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose a rabbit strip. This is a regular rabbit strip. Again, you can use any color that you want to. I like the barred stuff because it has a nice contrast in the color and it gives a little more sense of movement in the water. I want this to be about the same length as the hook shank, about right there. And yes, I am going to tie it in all the way up at the point of the hook eye because I want a nice even underbody for this fly. Nice even underbody. So I'm going to split those hairs back, hold them between my fingers. I'm going to cut the hide right here. The reason I fold the hairs back is I cut as few rabbit hairs as possible. Okay. So hide side down, right behind, about the width of the hook eye, behind the hook eye. And we want that right on top of the hook shank. So we are going to do some gathering wraps and tighten as we get there. And then as you do these spiral wraps, if you don't want the rabbit to be chased away from you as you wrap, pull your thread back at you like this. Pull at you. That will help keep it from actually getting chased around the hook. Okay, there. So this is where our foul guard is going to come into play. I'll let you guys finish getting that rabbit strip tied in. There's many different ways to do foul guards, depending on the material, saddle hackle, rabbit, marabou. Sometimes you can just do it with a couple wrap techniques. Sometimes you can actually use a guard. For many years, I used a mono guard that was in this dimension, this way. So the tail laid on top of it and was less likely to foul. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the hide. I'm going to pull it down towards where the hook point is so I get a measure of about where that is. You can puncture the hide with the hook point if you want to. I prefer to actually use a bodkin. I feel like I have more control of the bodkin and I jam my thumb on the hook far less. Word to the wise. So, boom, I go right through the hide like this. Then I take that heavy mono and I poke it right through the hole that I just made. Like that. So we're almost there with our foul guard. What I'm going to do now is bring this forward. So if I bring this, what I want is for this foul guard to be level. If you can see that, I'm not sure in this light if you can see that, but it's actually coming up from the bottom through the hide and forward. If I have it too loose this way, it's going to flop down here and probably foul. If I pull it too far this way, it kicks the tail up and it ruins the hydrodynamics of the fly. So what I want to do is have it, I take my fingers and I just flatten it down to a teardrop shape, and then I'm going to lock that in. So if you're not able to do this with me because you don't have the mono handy, if you have Drew Chacon's Featherbrain book, he details this pretty nicely in his book back from 2013. And Rich will be the first to tell you that he's not the first one who's done this. He probably saw someone else do it and thought it was a good way to do it. So, and then again, if you're going to clip off the excess, don't use your good tying scissors. Use something that's a bit more durable. Okay, we are well on our way to having a fly tied here. Where'd my glue go? This is where I put another dab of glue on, just to lock down that foul guard. So now you can see that's nearly impossible for that to come down and foul. We as anglers always find a way to foul things anyhow, but this really, really reduces the chances that's going to happen. Sorry guys, I keep fiddling with this light because I'm not really liking the glare. That might be a little bit better. Okay. So now I'm going to take some belly flash. I could stay the same and keep it chartreuse, but I have come to like a bit of a contrasting color. I like laser dub. I really like laser dub. In fact, people tell me I have a laser dub problem. What do you think? I don't think it, I don't know. There are worse things to be addicted to. I'm going to take, you can use ripple ice fiber, you can use even regular tinsel, you could use angel hair, mushy fibers. I like it because the laser dub, for those of you who are familiar with it, it has a really nice shimmer to it. It's very light and fluffy. So inverting the hook in the vise, I'm going to take this flash material, this belly material, and you see how sparse that is. It's not a big clump at all. I'm just going to kind of measure. I don't want it to go the full length of the tail. It's going to go about maybe 2/3 the length of the tail. I'm going to trim the butts off of it. And I'm going to use the point of the hook to split it. So about half of it on the side that's towards you, the other half towards me. And I'm going to tie that right down. Perfect. Good. So we're going to be wrapping some body material over all of this. So don't worry if you have any spiky hairs or it doesn't look perfect under there. It's going to be hidden and the fish don't care. So now I have this nice little contrast color underneath of red. You could do chartreuse, you could do yellow, orange, you could do a little pink to make the tutti frutti color. That's very good for albies down in North Carolina. But basically, what we're looking at now is the step where we're going to take our brush. This is an EP minnow head dubbing brush. It's 1.5 inches, okay? If you do anything bigger than 1 inch or 1.5 inches on this hook size, it's going to be out of proportion. And if you use some of the Spirit River brushes, they're very, very stiff, and you will actually be blocking hookups. You'll miss fish because the fibers are so stiff, they're actually in the way of the hook point, especially with a stinger hook like this. So if you're familiar with these brushes here, they're nice and soft, they have a give to them, and they're sparse enough that they allow for some pretty good movement. So treat this artificial material, I really love their dubbing brushes, treat this like a natural material. So get it in position right behind the tie-in point of the rabbit. And then I'm going to bring my thread forward to pretty much right behind the hook eye where I started my tie-in for the belly flash, the red material. Hey, Sean, what's up? I have my buddy Sean on the Cape. Good to see him. So we're going to stand this up like any dubbing brush you're going to palmer forward. I'm going to stroke the fibers this way, and I'm going to wrap it forward. And we can brush this out in a second. Going to bring that forward to almost right about here. Don't want to crowd the eye because we're going to be putting a finishing headpiece on here. Once I get there, I do 3 wraps behind, and I do 2 wraps in front. And yes, this is very thin wire, but I'm going to use the same tool that I used to cut the heavy mono to cut this. Again, I preach quite a bit that I don't use my tying scissors to cut anything that's metal, because even if it's thin, is there a big difference between the minnow brush and the one? Yeah, that's a great question. The question is there a big difference between the minnow brush and the 1.5 inch boxy brush? No, not a huge difference. You would be more concerned if the material wasn't supple like this, because it would actually impede and make the fly stiffer in the water. It's a very good question. Very good question. So back on my soapbox about using the right tools. I'm going to clip that, okay? If there's a burr, I'm going to take my fingers and stroke back any errant fibers. And if there's a burr there, I'm going to just build up a little head right there. And now we can actually whip finish this fly, whether you're using a tool or your fingers, whatever your heart desires. Now, before I put that finishing touch on the fly, where did my, these things are worth their weight in gold. If you fish any flies that have artificial fibers or brushes like this, these are great. You should also have one on you when you go fishing, because if this gets mangled after catching a fish, you can just pull out your pocket and stroke it out. Yeah, if you're using them on saltwater fish and stuff, they will eventually rust out on you, but they're not that expensive. And you know, my kids got one, I've got one, I have one on the boat, so it's well worth it. So we're just gonna take this. This is a very durable brush, so you can really get aggressive and dig in there. Word to the wise, careful the hook point as you're stroking this way. Bet $1 for every time I stuck myself on the hook point brushing a fly out, I could probably buy my family a nice dinner. And invite mom and dad.
That would be nice.
Yeah. You come this way. You fly, I buy.
Okay.
Okay. So now, this is what we got. I want to seal that. I could use the hard as nails, but that brush isn't quite as precise as I would like it to be. I'm using the Solaris Bone Dry. This is their really ultra thin formula that is pretty much the equivalent of a head cement. And I can take this precision brush, just touch those, and because this stuff is so thin, you don't need to hit it with the light very much. Just kind of wiggle the light, boom, 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 boom. Don't look directly at the light. And that's already cured just in a couple seconds. So if you have your fish mask, you can take your fish mask, slide it over there. And now you're seeing why we had to leave a little bit of room behind the hook guide. Now, I tie a lot of really big predator flies. Look at this guy right here, right? It uses a fish mask. And a fish mask of this size, I want to put a thread dam in front of that. You can see the red thread, and then seal it. This right here, okay? A fly this small, I don't need to do that. What you could do if you wanted to, you could put some glue right here and push it on, and it will harden that way. That's a perfectly acceptable way to do that. But what I'm going to do, because I have my handy dandy Solaris really, really quick. Hey, Sean, nice mask, dude. I'm going to take my bone dry. You guys can take whatever kind of glue you want to. You can put it on the finish end of the dubbing brush if you want, and then push it on with a standard glue. Some of these resins will cure right through the plastic. Good. This usually takes a couple. Eyes are level in this dimension. And I'm going to hit it one more coat. Okay. Like that. When you hit it with the light, make sure you take your open container Solaris and move it out of the way so you don't cure your bottle. There. That's that. That is the silly bunny with a little splash of red on the bottom. It is that easy. That's why it's yeah, the name of the thing used to brush. Yeah, that is the EP finger brush, exactly. Yep. Very affordable. So this is, I know I was introduced to it for false albacore, but over the past few years, since I've tied a couple hundred of them over the past couple of years for my own personal use. And also it's a great guide fly because, as you can see, if I had all my materials laid out and measured, that's literally a 3-minute fly. And if a bluefish swims away with it, I'm not so concerned. So what I want people to realize is this fly is more or less a small version of a predator fly. This is great on the Housatonic River and other places for smallmouth bass. This is great for schoolie stripers, as you can probably imagine. In fact, throw it at schoolie stripers and try to keep it away from them. We actually tried to find stripers in the fall last year that wouldn't bite this. We couldn't find them. It wasn't a bad problem to have. You can also adjust the depth of this fly. Will this video be available later? That's a great question, Anthony. Are you guys saving these sessions? There's a question about whether or not this video will be available.
I did record this video. So
great. So maybe there could be an announcement afterwards as to its location or something.
All right.
Good question, Bill. Nice to hear from you. What size ranges for the schoolie stripers? Well, this right here is a number 2 hook, and you know, you can catch them. I don't really tie them much bigger than this because I use these when the fish are on smaller bait. When fish are on something bigger, I will use a different pattern. But you know, I've had 14-inch schoolies have no trouble getting a 4-aught hook in their mouth either. So I mean, experiment. You can go smaller, you can go bigger. What is the advantage of the brush fibers versus something like marabou? Yes. So another very good question. the advantage of the brush is that it's much more durable than marabou. And marabou, as you probably know, adds a lot of bulk and weight to a fly. So the fly I showed you a moment ago, this bad boy, the bungee bunny, this guy, you know, he's got 2 wrapped marabou quills on it. You need at least an 8 or a 9 weight to throw that. This guy right here, you can throw with a 5 weight if you wanted to. I mean, it all depends on what your target is. What I wanted to say also is that you can change the depth of this. You don't need the fish mask, quite frankly. A lot of people like the eyes because it gives them a sense of confidence, but when I'm cranking these out, you know what I put down? You know what I put on the fly? I put the rabbit tail and I put the dubbing brush collar. That's it, in white. Something really, really simple. And as my buddy Sean would call it, cannon fodder. And it's just something you can crank out really, really easy and throw at people. The mono seems to go side to side as well as top to bottom. No, it's actually not. The mono, if you look at it in this dimension, I'm trying to see if you guys can see that. I'm actually squeezing it right here. If you're having a hard time seeing it, that's actually good because it means the fish don't see it. But it's not in this dimension, it's in this dimension. Remind me how you decide how far back to punch the hole for the mono. Yeah, so what you would want to do, I will show you. I'll put a hook in the vise and I will show you that. It's actually a pretty neat trick. So let's say, without cutting anything, I'm just going to approximate. Let's say we have a rabbit strip tied in right here. I'm going to take the free rabbit and bring it down to where the hook point is with a little bit of slack on top of that, and that's where I'll punch through, right where the hook point would be, basically the gap of the hook, the gap of the hook. Yep. What size ranges, advantages, mono, Good questions, everybody. So what I wanted to say earlier was you can adjust the weight on this as well. Instead of a fish mask, you could put a little cone head on it. You can put small dumbbell eyes. You can put bead chain. And I'm actually glad that my buddy Sean is on, because one time, a few years ago, there were albies kind of all over the place at Gardner's Island in New York. And we were throwing flies at them, and Sean was out fishing me 4-to-1. He'll tell you he did that because he's simply a stud and the fish love him. But the real reason is because his fly was slightly more weighted than mine. Mine was unweighted, and the albies were coming up and they were shying away from it in the bright sun. Sean had some small dumbbell weights on it. That fly got down about 1/2 foot or so, and that was enough for them to really turn and take it. So this is more or less I'm going to use the word template, not platform, because I know Rich doesn't like the term platform. This is a nice template from which you can spring forth and tie a whole bunch of stuff. Really, really stuff. You're limited only by your imagination. Any color combination, any dubbing brush you might want to use, as long as it's not too coarse and stiff, so it's going to prevent it having movement. It's going to include the hook point. You don't want to put a hook guard on there unintentionally from the materials. If you were to use dumbbell eyes, would you still have the hook point down? Yes, I would, because this is not something that's going to be bouncing around down near the bottom. I would. You don't have to. You can actually invert it this way, and you can put everything on that you just did. Just when you puncture the hide and put your foul guard on, it's going to be going over this way. You could put it that way, but I tend to use this fly in fairly open water, so snags are not really too much of a concern. I usually put cones on it because it's a little more dynamic with the shape of the fly. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything else you guys would like to see? What's that?
I said, great job.
Oh, thank you. You're a completely unbiased source, Dad. I appreciate that.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Do I ever use lead wire? I haven't used lead wire, but there's nothing saying you can't do that to weight the fly. You could keep the overall appearance of the fly, and if you have lead wrapped on the shank, they'll get down. No reason why you can't do that. No reason.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Rich is going to be back a week from tonight, and I am going to be scheduled one of these Wednesday nights, so I'll see you guys all again. If there's anything in particular, Scott sent out the email about the BearsDen, and he said, are there any tires we'd like to see participate in this. And I'm happy to have been asked to do it. See Tide. Please plug away and ask that too, because what I want us to be able to do in partnership with the BearsDen is fit what really interests people. This is a great filler while we're all quarantined and we can still talk about tying with people who love to tie and fish. But if there's something specific, now if you're looking for dry flies and anything smaller than a size 6 hook, I'm not your guy. Okay, I am saltwater flats, saltwater, freshwater predator fish, you know, pike, muskie, bass, dorado, tigerfish, that kind of thing. I can't remember the last time I tied something smaller than a size 6 hook, and that was for bonefish. So probably been, wow, I'm not going to say how long it's been, but that's that. Hey, no problem, guys. You're all thanking me, but thank you for participating in this. This is a great forum to do it. If you're, I'll also plug the American Fly Fishing Museum, because this Saturday, if you enjoy the Fly Fishing Museum, their Facebook page is going to be going live, and I'm going to be tying a pair of predator flies Saturday night at 6 o'clock. So if you're on Facebook, go like the American Fly Fishing Museum page. They're a great organization, and you'll get cued when we go live on Saturday for another tying session like this. Very informal, just like we're doing here, open to questions, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, thanks, guys. Very good. What do you think, Anthony? Should we let them go?
Yeah, thanks a lot again, Mark, from everybody. And this was awesome. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to do it. Like I said, any excuse to tie and hang out with people who like what I do. So it's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you guys again at some point on the Wednesday I'm scheduled. And look in this space next week for Rich. He'll be back. He'll be back. He sends his apologies, but hopefully this wasn't too much of a downgrade.
This was awesome. This was awesome. Anthony, one question. Is this normally 6 o'clock, or is I noticed on the website it was 6 o'clock sometimes, and this was 7?
Yeah, I mean, the special guest tires, I think we're going to keep it at 7 because that's what most people seem to pop on anyway. But yeah, usually on Wednesdays we just come on at 6 and title whenever. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
all right.
So guys, you are now obligated, if you tie up a bunch of these flies, and I know you will, and you're successful with them, and I know you will, you have to let us know how you did with them. That's your part of the deal, okay?
Will do.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Had a wonderful time.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
You told me to ask all about this.
That was a good one, Anthony.
Yeah. So, not sure if we're going to do it this Saturday. So,
Yeah, thanks, man.
posted. Might be a little bit later if we do. We'll look for that. But it's always the same link to all the meetings. So
I'll sit on it anyway.
thanks, guys.
Y'all have a good one.
Have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Jen. Bye.
See you, Drew.